Hey guys, welcome to OCD Real Talk once more. New gang this time, except for Sam, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on who you like on this channel. But yeah, but today we wanted to talk about mental compulsions because we thought we hadn't discussed it as a topic on OCD Real Talk just yet. So we thought it would be good to bring it up because I would say mental compulsions are a part of every single theme, probably. Everyone has mental compulsions, no matter if you have HOCD, health OCD, contamination, POCD, whatever it is. You're trying to work things out in your head quite a lot. So um, let's start with Alexander. Alexander hasn't been here for a while, and then we'll go to Harley because Harley has also not been here for a while. So, Alexander, what would you say were like your mental compulsions are aside? So here's one other thing. Sorry, obviously all of us have ruminated. So and like we've
Yeah.
done it very compulsively. So that goes without saying. What I want to try to cover in this video is if they are, we'll go into rumination as well, but if there are even more like details and nuances of mental compulsions that that often go missed. So that's what I also want to aim for. So go ahead, Alexander.
Yeah, I think for me the biggest mental compulsion was comparing my whenever I had like some spike, backdoor spike or setback, and I noticed that I'm comparing my current state with my previous one, just to find certainty that oh yeah, I felt like I guess I felt like this before, so that's why I'm going to get through it again. And I think understanding that we can slowly like chip the fear away and go through it is good, but actually just to calm yourself down with this comparing and trying to analyze how you feel today and comparing to your previous suffering just to find certainty, I think it isn't good, because here is like big fear factor, and we are trying to find this certainty and this clarity that we are certainly going to like get through it and get better.
Yeah,
Yeah.
common thing everybody does. Trying to compare how did my old self feel? The old me,
Yeah.
would the old me think like this? Would the old me feel like this? So yeah, definitely. Harley, what about you?
Uh, s- so for me, and I think Sam can relate to this as well. My biggest compulsion was ruminating for sure, and it would be really bad at work. I
Mm.
would always go to like to the toilet at work, and I would just sit there and just ruminate, and I couldn't come out until I get like some sort of quick fix or like quick relief, and I couldn't
You
leave
must have
until
been
I
there a
felt better.
while.
And what was that?
You must have been in there a while.
Oh yeah, 100%. I was in there. Most of my
It's
shift
still in
was
there
like
now.
in there.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Like
But
this guy, he has diarrhea every day. Like, what's up with him?
yeah. But yeah, and I couldn't leave until I got some sort of relief or until I felt better about the situation. Then as soon as I'd leave and I continue with my shift, it would be mostly would come straight back, and I'd have to go straight back to where I went, because that was like a safe place for me at work, because I was away from everyone. I was able to just be by myself and just really sit there and just think about stuff and try and work it out. And no matter how much I tried to do it, it just wasn't. Looking back now, there was no benefit to me at all. It was just making me worse in the long term. But at the time, you don't realize that. You think you're trying to do what you think is the right thing, but it's so detrimental to your recovery. It's unbelievable.
That's
You
But
don't.
Go ahead, Sam.
I was relating to Harley there. You don't realise that OCD is going to just find something else or just move the goalpost. Because I can relate to that, ruminating at work and just go into the bathroom or just go into somewhere where no one can see you. And yeah, you're just trying to analyse, you're trying to work something out, you're trying to get the answer. I did that so many times, but that was before I knew how it operated, and that it would just find something else, nestle out of reach, move the goalposts. But yeah, so much time ruminating, like Harley said.
No, that's interesting that you guys say that you ruminated at work, because rumination, like I would say, most people often say that when they're like either free, when they don't have something to do, or their schedule, like, or when they're at home lying in bed or something like that, that's where like I mean, of course, rumination like is an ongoing thing, but like taking dedicated time out, like you come across very few people, like I have not come across many people who say that, oh, I take time out at work in the bathroom, or like I don't know, in the cafeteria or whatever it is, that to just to think about it. So yeah, that's interesting that you would do that at work specifically. Was it, so let me ask both of you, since both of you experienced it, was it also like because you want, was there any part of it that was like, I want to recenter myself and then go back to work with a more concentrated brain? Like, what was the thought process behind it?
For me, it was more just like I just want to be able to not feel like shit. Like I want to be able to like talk to people at work and like have this feeling of peace in my mind. And like like I said, as soon as I feel like I'd got it, it would instantly just go. And then, but at the same time, like it was weird. I never avoided work either, which was weird. Like I still went to work even though I knew most of my shift was going to be horrible. I still went to work, but yeah, the rumination was just it was really bad. Like I just wanted that quick quick fix for that quick peace of mind. That just every time I felt like I was there, it just kept fleeing. And yeah, I'm sure Sam can relate to that as well.
Yeah, it was because I couldn't concentrate at work, so I felt like I couldn't. So I thought the answer to that was to go away and work it all out. So I'd be triggered by something. I'll give an example. So maybe on the way to work, I was driving in, and then let's say I thought I hit someone on the way in, or drove past a cyclist and thought I might have knocked him off. All right, so I'll get into work and I wouldn't be able to focus, I wouldn't be able to concentrate, couldn't have a conversation with anyone, whether it be on the phone to someone or just face to face. So I had to then go out and then just think about the situation, think about the event, and try and work it out. So try and find peace that way. So, but it never worked because, like I said, OCD would just find something else and it would just hit you with another angle, or it would doubt everything. But yeah, that's why it mainly latched me at work, because I was so desperate to concentrate and succeed. It would then just try and throw me off, and I just couldn't focus. But also, like you say, Mel, I've had it where when I'm supposed to be relaxed at home, in the shower a lot. It's not a certain time that I ruminate, but I remember ruminating a lot at work. But yeah, that's not like the only time I ever ruminate.
Sam, did you ever feel like your compulsion to ruminate would ramp up more when you would have plans or you'd have an event to go to? Because for me, before I would like go out to meet someone, like I feel like in my head I'd feel this urge to ruminate would just ramp up even more. And then when I'm out, it's like, oh no, I'm not in my safe space now, and everyone around me is like enjoying this, and I'm trying to enjoy this. I need to make sure I enjoy this. And then yeah, I don't know. Like for me, it just ramped up even more because I feel like OCD knows subconsciously that you want to enjoy the moment, and then it's just going to ramp up even more.
Oh God, yeah, like a big social event or a big life event, or if I had a holiday like coming up, I'm at work on a Friday, and then I'm going on holiday Saturday, then I would just I'd spend the whole Friday ruminating and try and work everything out. Or let's say we're going out after work, and then I'm so desperate to feel good and enjoy myself. And like you said, the rumination ramps up, the sort of the crave for certainty ramps up, because you want to feel all right. You just want it all figured out, and then you can get on with your life. That crap and that cycle that we get in. But yeah, definitely when I got a big event coming up, it would just get in central.
Gemma, what about you? Where do you fall on the mental compulsion spectrum?
So my biggest one was probably self-reassuring. So I would say mostly with all my themes, I think I reassured myself a lot, but the most recent, with the health OCD, every kind of physical symptom I was getting, my brain would automatically try and reassure me that, this is just a physical symptom of anxiety. And it was almost like a mantra: it's just your anxiety, even though I was desperately trying to not do that because I was well aware it was a compulsion. Obviously, being a mental compulsion, it's really, really hard. It's a lot harder, I think, with the mental compulsions to stop them because they are so automatic. Whereas with the physical ones, I think you can white knuckle it, so to speak, and stop yourself from performing the physical compulsion. But with mental, it's really hard because they are just very, very automatic. One that I was doing, which I thought would be interesting to say because I've never heard anyone say it before, so I thought it would be interesting for other people. So when I had the house OCD really bad, one of my compulsions mentally was looking at old people. Like every time I saw an old person, I would just watch them for ages because I was just, how have they lived for so long? You know, this is amazing. They've lived until they're like 80. I could live until I'm like 80 if they could live until they're 80. I've never heard anyone say it before, and now I find it really amusing. But that was genuinely a compulsion to look at old people, and I would watch them because I found it really like relaxing to watch them and think, yeah, it is possible to live until that age. I almost wanted to go up to them and ask them how they'd managed to do it. I never got that far, but the mental compulsion of looking at them was definitely there. And then also the internal thermometer, obviously, was compulsive for me. So every morning I woke up, how am I feeling? Am I feeling more anxious? As Alex said, with the comparison, am I feeling more anxious than I was yesterday? Am I feeling more anxious than I was this time last week, this time last year? Yeah, so I think mental compulsions are definitely a lot more difficult to stop, in my opinion, because they are very automatic.
Probably, I would say mental compulsions are often, with a lot of people, the last ones to go as well. Because it's like, think about it, your brain, if your brain is inherently extremely afraid, right? It's going to have certain knee-jerk responses, right? So when like a fear pops up or an uncomfortable thought or image or whatever it is pops up, it's immediately going to give that knee-jerk response of like trying to respond to it, right? Our brain is working on its own even when we are not deliberately making it work. It's kind of like its own person at times as well inside yourself, right? Because it's doing its own thing even when you're not doing something with it. So it's going to do those automatic responses, and it will naturally and gradually taper off of those knee-jerk responses once it becomes overall less afraid and less rigid about things.
Yeah, but it's really interesting you say about that compulsion you had with looking at older people. Because not so much I wouldn't say I would do that, but I can see how that happens. I can see how it would latch to that. But what I can relate to with looking at other people is say I couldn't quite understand how they can be at peace compared to my brain. Why you're not getting these kind of thoughts, you know, how you not riddled with chronic guilt and shame. It was so links into the jealousy like we spoke about last video, but I can certainly see how it latches to, oh my God, why can't they can live to 80, so that I'm not going to, or yeah, I can certainly see how it latches to that. It's really interesting you say that, because there's loads of ones that as other people are talking, you're like, oh yeah, I can see how that works, or I can relate to that myself.
Yeah, it's interesting because even if it's not a compulsion that we've had or heard of, when people explain their compulsions, because we have OCD brains, I think we can work out where they've gone with that. Like, I think it was, who was it before that was talking about the testosterone thing? Elliot, when he was talking about the fact that he had to make sure he got enough sleep so it would produce more testosterone so that his HOCD wouldn't play out. I'd never heard it before, but as soon as he said it, my brain was like working out exactly where he's had gone with it. And I was thinking, I know exactly where he's going with that, because that's what I do. I go, but this means this, so this means this, so this means this. And then the compulsion that comes out of it can be so random, but it completely makes sense as to why it was there.
For me, I would say like the old people thing played in, like, because I had a massive fear of sadness, and part of my mental compulsions were, I wasn't only internally, that mental thermometer wasn't just trying to check my levels of anxiety, but also trying to check my levels of sadness. is there any remnants of sadness that are coming up? So I was constantly trying to analyze, and trying to get rid of any sad thought, feeling, whatever it was. And so I would look at an old person, right? Or let's say I'm watching someone's interview or something like that, and they say, "Oh, I'm 70 years old." I would think, I wonder if they feel sad that their mobility has slowed down, and that they know that majority of their life has passed, and like, do they feel sad? Is it something they wonder about? And because I have
Yeah.
sadness, so you were looking at it from a health perspective, and I'm looking at it from like a sadness perspective. So it
Yeah.
comes from like, it can come from all different angles.
It's an
Mm-hmm.
interesting thing though, because, and going back to what Sam said about looking at people and wondering like, oh, are they having this thought, or why is this person so happy? Like, it is jealousy, but then it's like, it's almost like that person that you're looking at and thinking that person is probably looking at you and thinking, why is this person not going through what I'm going through? You know, and you don't think about that when you're suffering, but like when you're out of it, it's like, oh, I don't know what that person's going through. They're probably thinking, they could be going through a lot worse than what I'm going through. They're looking at me thinking, why am I so happy? You know, and it's like it's an interesting thing. Like, you don't think about these things.
As we're talking about that with other people's reactions and other people, I remember picturing or imagining how they would react if only they knew, because that was a big thing of mine. I can't think if only they knew this,
Yeah.
and if real event, false
Yeah.
memory, whatever. And how would they react? So you'd be looking at someone, but only if you knew this, you would not be saying this to me now. And you'd be getting aggressive, you'd be telling me to go, like, and I'd be imagining that reaction. And then if you saw me then, I'd be like looking like I'm completely vacant look, and my mind's elsewhere. And it's just crazy how that can just happen so quickly. Like in a meeting at work, I'd suddenly go into that, and oh my god, only if they knew this. And how they'd suddenly react, and all the conversation would change, and the mood and the atmosphere would change. It's just funny how that can happen. So
I love these conversations because every time any of you talk, I just relate to it so much. And I just find it really, because you feel really alone, don't you? When you've got OCD and you've got all this stuff going on, you can feel really, really alone. And then we get together and have a conversation. And every time one of you talks, I go, yeah, I've done that. I've done that.
Yeah.
it's almost like
It's just all.
And that thing
Sorry,
of like,
Sam, I missed that.
that other thing of like what people think of you as well. Like, people would always come up to me and be like, "Oh my God, you're so confident," and like, because I used to do like performance art, and even if I had to perform in front of people or speak in front of people, I'd be completely okay with it. So people would be like, "Oh, you're so comfortable and you're so social and you like interact with everyone," and I'd be like, girl, you don't know what's going on in my head. Like, I'm internally beating myself up for something that happened, like, I don't know, like a few years ago. I'm still thinking I'm like a shit person. So, but it's interesting how, like, I don't deny that, yes, maybe I was a confident person, but at the same time, that's not what I was seeing about myself. What I was seeing about myself was like this chronic guilt and shame that was eating away at me. Alexander, I like, what with mental compulsions, like, when did you do you remember any specific moment where you felt like they were like finally kind of easing up?
Yeah, sure. You know, like how much there is still a misunderstanding in about OCD, and when we see like such comments as you need to stop mental compulsions, just like start doing something, distract yourself and stuff like that. And obviously, like this is a big one of the biggest misunderstandings, because we all know how OCD grips, and when we fear something to death, it like goes constantly automatically. And it was surprisingly like it it felt surprisingly for me when I started working, like after reading list and when I started disputing and stuff like that. And I remember that I was at work doing my job, and I was just thinking to myself, like, like this strange feeling when your head like feels like empty, and there is no this extreme emotion. So it was like, like strange. And this feeling that like maybe 2 weeks ago you were afraid to death of something, and then you like can see, yeah, it would be a big unfortunate, or I really don't want this to happen, but it's still not the end of the world. And this is like big light bulb moment. And also when you guys were speaking about this like mental compulsions, I remember when I initially got stuck with POCD, and when I was like, I didn't know nothing about OCD and how it works, and I was like constantly bombarded with intrusive thoughts, images, and I thought that I had a way out. So when I was bombarded by this thought, I had a need to feel sick, like, and it was like big reassurance for me. So I was like, okay, this might be a disorder. So if this is just thoughts, and if it makes me sick, it makes me feel sick, that it's just like 100% of that this is OCD.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was like reassuring myself this way. But as all reassurance, in one moment they like just OCD like attacks from another angle, and that's when my like false memory like just popped up, and it was like maybe the lowest moment of my journey.
Sorry, Gemma, I muted you because there was some echo coming from you, so that's why I muted you for a bit.
That's fine. I just got a thing pop up on the screen. The host muted you. I was like, what was I doing?
Yeah, no, the mic was, I think, echoing from your end because
It bounces off each other
yeah.
sometimes. Yeah.
No, absolutely. I think I also remember, and usually it's not like that. Usually you do gradually go into that point, like at least as far as trying to analyze my feelings, whether like, trying to analyze my sadness and like whatever negative emotion I was trying to analyze. I remember specifically a moment where I was sitting on my bed and I was literally about to mentally launch into an analysis of trying to figure out my sadness, or like why was I feeling so frustrated. And immediately I was like, hold on, like I don't need to do this. I don't need to do this. I've done this for so many years. I just don't need to do this. And I didn't do it. I was able to stop. And like, but that's not, obviously, it wasn't just like this magic moment would happen. It was a lot of months of slowly, like in the background, also working on beliefs. And for me, the Paul David book really helped with this, because the Paul David book really talks about like not doing anything, not trying to fix your anxiety. For me, that also was like translated to not trying to fix my um, mental discomfort. So I was like, if I feel it, I feel it. And so obviously it wasn't like, oh, I read the book once and voila. But I mean, because for someone watching this, I don't want them to think, oh, he was able to stop it so immediately. It was like a work in progress. But I do remember the moment where I was like, I'm not doing this. And it was just like, and it felt like something literally like lifted off my chest. It was a big burden to carry, to constantly be in that analysis mode.
Going off your point, more about it being a gradual process, like I had that same thing where it was like a gradual process where you stop ruminating. And for me, it was like I had this, there would be like, I'd go like long periods of time where I wouldn't ruminate. And then I'd have that realization where I'd be like, oh, I haven't actually ruminated over this for a while. But then that would trigger me, because it'd be like, oh, now it's come back into my mind, and now I'm analyzing how I felt back then. And now it's this constant cycle of rumination again. It's like, oh, what's just happened? It's like that sudden like relief, but then it's like that instant trigger as well. It's like it just like clashes, and it's like
Yeah.
I had that a lot.
I think for me, like with mental, because with, let's say, not launching into an analysis, that's a moment I specifically remember. But what I don't remember is, when was it that those constant bombardment of images and thoughts and sounds and memories in my head, constantly, I don't remember when that stopped. It was just one day, like you said, it was just one day. It was like, wait, I like I'm not thinking about those things 24/7. How did that happen? When did that happen? Why did I not realize it? So it's a gradual transitioning into that life. And it was amazing to realize that I wasn't thinking of like a Lady Gaga song to distract myself mentally from that thought, or like whatever else it was. Because I was using, for some reason, I was using Lady Gaga music to distract myself mentally. But then what happened was I stopped listening to her music, because in my mind she became associated with like OCD. So then I stopped listening to her music. Only in my head I would listen to it, but not like on Spotify or YouTube. So it became like a strange cycle. But yeah, it's the same as one analogy I often give people on one-to-one calls is like when you break up with someone and you don't wake up one day and say, oh, today's the day I've moved on from them. It's one day that you realize, oh, wait, I haven't like thought about that person, or the thought of that person doesn't sting me anymore. I don't know when it happened, but it's happened.
I think mental compulsions can happen in all different ways, can't they? So I want to give an example of how it would happen with me. And I'm sure Hardy can relate to this. Well, I'm sure you all can, but I remember me and Hardy talking about this a lot. And that would be neutralizing the thought. Let's say during times of intimacy. I remember at times I would say shout something random or completely opposite, to try and, neutralize or take my mind off the thought that just come in. And that was really challenging times. Just going back on shouting random things out, and it shows how OCD can stem from such a young age. I remember walking to school, and I used to get these random thoughts just as I was walking down, and then I'd shouting out song lyrics or just completely random words, and people must think I was absolutely crazy, but it was just to distract my mind from what was coming in. And this was from when I was about 14, 15, so very, very young. Obviously, I didn't have a clue how OCD operated, what even was back then. But that was the compulsion I was doing. So whether shouting it out or just telling myself in my head, just completely random words and just, neutralize it. And later on, I'd be saying mantras in my head, whether out loud or just repeating the same sentence in my head. So, or you are not your OCD, or you're not a bad person.
Yeah.
You're the last person to do this. Especially real event false memory OCD, just saying, no, that's just OCD, you've done nothing wrong. I mean, in my recent video, I spoke about how I had it written down in my notes on my phone, and just reassurance mantra over again, saying, you've got OCD, you would never do something like that. You're a good person, everyone loves you. Just complete reassurance. And I was telling that in my head over and over again, and thinking that was going to be, that's how I was going to get better, by just shouting out something random when a thought came in. Could you imagine that was the way to recovery, just shouting out random?
I don't.
Sorry, Alexander, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I don't know why, but when I really stuck with OCD, every time when I had intrusive thought or image, I just was telling to myself in my head, 300 of billion. I don't know why, but I just I noticed like way like later this, and when I really got the knowledge what compulsion is. But I just was like, every time I was walking down the street and something triggered me, and I was just myself saying to myself like a mantra, 300 of billion every time. And this is like so so crazy when I thinking about it right now. So,
I think like wait, now because I got stuck in the confusion, now I'm
Do it, because you'll forget.
Yeah, no, I did forget, like, because I was going to say to Sam that now I'm wondering that people I've heard singing on the street, like, are they doing some mental compulsion? Like, what are they doing? I don't know. Really making me question that now. Jim,
It
what
was the
were you
same
about to
song.
say?
That's Sorry, Jen, that song that I was shouting out, it was my little safe place. It was my comfort zone. But I knew if I sang the same lyric to the same song, then that would be it. The thought would go, and that's crazy looking back now.
Yeah.
This is just a bit cool.
I was just gonna say, going off of something Alex said earlier about when he was getting like intrusive thoughts and images and things, and he wanted it to make him feel sick because then it wasn't real. I used to actually, when I would get one, I would not only think I feel sick, but I would also like almost mimic the action of being sick. It was like an automatic, like my body would go like that, and like I'd feel it in my throat, and it was almost like I was like, it was like a compulsive tick almost, I would say. Like I would like
yeah,
that
no.
sensation.
And Gemma, that was actually my next point that I had written down. I wanted to bring up as well, because mental compulsions also, and you guys might probably will be able to relate to this. Mental compulsions come with a lot of, like you said, almost physical tics or some physical reactions as well. So, for example, in certain moments when I would feel like my brain is being crowded with those mental images, I'd be like I'd blink hard repeatedly. Like I would blink, but I would blink hard almost because, and I exerted this force that gave me, I don't know, it was a strange thing of like feeling like I had some control over my brain, or like it felt like maybe there was a way to push out the thought. Or what I would do is I would, like, when the thoughts would be there, I would freeze. And when the thoughts would ease up on their own, only then would I move. And I would hold my breath as well. I wouldn't breathe. I would do very short breaths. It's only when the thoughts eased up, it'll be like, so physical reactions to mental compulsions also showed up that way, which became compulsive because then I had to break that cycle. When images would be popping up, like going like a machine gun, I would make it a point to move and not freeze up, because then I'm literally stopping my life just based on the fact that I'm having intrusive thoughts.
I
can
remember
relate.
when. Oh no,
Go
go
on.
on, Sam.
Carry on, Holly.
I was gonna say, I remember when I would get images coming up, I would like physically like shake my head to like get the thought out of my head, and I would also. And
Yeah.
another thing I would do, I would also do what Sam does as well, by like shouting things out to like try and get rid of the thought. But I'd be doing it at the same time. So like looking at it from the outside, I'd look absolutely mental doing it. You know what I mean? But like yeah, but like Gemma said, it is like a tick almost. It is like a form of tick, and yeah, it's
like you say,
funny
Holly,
looking back.
I genuinely used to shake my like. I genuinely used to go like that, like
Yeah.
that. And, like I say, people are crazy, and especially shouting out stuff. But you just thought that was the, that's how I get rid of this thought. And you anything, you feel like, oh, look, no, I've got to get out of my brain.
Yeah.
You physically do something. Like,
Yeah, there was another devilish behavior that I did, was like, because there were certain words that were contaminated for me as well. So like if I accidentally said them, or if I was forced to say them in a sentence or whatever, I would feel like I was verbally contaminated in a sense, like, or my tongue was contaminated. So I had these counter words that I had to repeat for whatever reason 40 times. It was just an arbitrary number that my brain came up with. Oh, this sounds like about like the right amount of times you have to say that. So 40 times I would have to say that other like word that would counter that, like that triggering word. So let's say, and often it would be a name. So for example, if it was Gemma, right? Now I'm sitting at work and I said like a triggering OCD word, and I'm like, oh God, I'm feeling contaminated like verbally, so I need to cleanse it somehow. But I can't say it out loud while I'm sitting at work on a table with other people. This is what I would do. I would whisper that under my breath. I'd be like, "Chema, chema, 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 chema." And like, because I still just felt the need to just say it, because I wanted to feel like clean, verbally clean again. And so it was such a like devilish behavior, like whispering like some, I don't know, some kind of spell. But I just felt I needed to do it.
it's
I'm
funny
gonna
how
hear
it
that
works.
in I'm gonna hear that in my nightmares tonight, Norman. Just you.
Yeah.
Isn't it funny how it plays itself in all the different ways? And like, because if I with that, so let's say with names, because names would get stuck with me. And if I thought I said a name out loud, then that would send me into a spiral and into a panic. And yeah, but with you're actually saying the name to feel you think you're going to get relief that way. So isn't it funny how all these different mental compulsions work? Get as OCD, but all different
Yeah.
ways it goes down and all.
Earlier when you and Harley were talking about doing compulsions at work, that never happened for me, because when I used to go out or when I was at work or with my friends, that's when my rumination actually went lower, because I was like actually interacting and like embracing the present moment as best as I could. My rumination went up when I was alone. So, which is why you have to really like sometimes talk to people individually, because not every single person is going to have the exact same symptom. It varies for each person. Like when rumination goes up and down, probably varies for all five of us.
Mm, mm. And isn't it like what Alex was saying earlier about, if he didn't feel sick, he was then worried that it was and it was going to be real. So isn't it funny when, let's say at times where you're not ruminating, it almost feels alien that why am I not ruminating it? Why am I sat with my brain and, feeling a bit of peace, and then boom, like Harley said, it'll find something, it'll go, right, and it'll hit me with another angle, and then, or why weren't you feeling like this then, or why weren't you feeling like this now? I remember having that a lot with real event false memory today, going, okay, why are you suddenly worrying about this now? Does that mean it happened? Does that mean you just forgot about it and lost control? Doubting everything like it does.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was trying to really solve out the problem. Like I was stuck with the real event, and I thought it happened like maybe 12 years ago, and I was like, why was I at peace like before this year? Why I'm so torturing by it now? And I was trying to reassure myself that it is just a false memory, but then my OCD came from another angle, that you were always a monster inside, but now you're just, maybe your consciousness just woke up, and now you are tortured by this real event, and you were at peace with it because like you were a monster. So yeah.
I don't know if other people can relate to it. I used to analyze people's reactions a lot. So I know we talk about people where you imagine someone's reactions, but let's say you said a joke that was slightly on the borderline of offensive, and then you analyze how they reacted to it, or just something that you said, and I'd be going over and over in my head to a point I'd actually go in and text them and going, oh, is that okay? Or do you still like me? And then, chasing reassurance that way. I was spending hours in my own head, like driving home, and just thinking, God, did they react to that wrong? Did they take that the wrong way? Did they get the wrong end of the stick? I remember doing that all the time.
I was king of that.
Even scanning.
I was absolutely king of that.
Even scanning like people's face reaction every time when you say something, like just to be sure that everything is okay. Like, yeah.
Yeah. Do they still like me, or are they angry or upset with me? Did they blink or did they look away? Like it became
It's just another form of like people pleasing.
Exactly, it's another form. And I do also just quickly want to point out as well that like even with the physical responses that we give to mental compulsions or this checking thing, these also ease up as our fear levels go down along the journey as well. So if you're worried about, no, but like I'm tapping my foot as soon as like I'm getting an intrusive thought, I'm making myself stuck in like OCD by not tapping my foot. No, like it's again, that's almost like an automatic response as well that you're giving out physically, and those automatic physical and mental responses that you're doing will eventually start tapering off as you're working on your perspectives and as you're doing more exposures and you're doing more recovery work.
Yeah, I think it's really important to realize that you're not just going to get rid of years and years of compulsive behavior in an instant. Like you're not going to be able to come into OCD recovery, go, okay, I can see, yeah, I am doing this. You're not going to be able to get rid of all that immediately. Obviously, you can go for the bigger stuff, but there are going to be little things that you're still finding a long time later. Like I still now, I'm a year and a half in, I still find little behaviors occasionally, and I'll go, oh, is that a little bit compulsive? I'll cut it out. It'll make me feel a bit funny, and I'll go, okay, that was compulsive. Like I'm still finding them out. Yeah, I'm not in that, suffering state anymore, but you're not going to just be completely OCD free you know, in the beginning stages of recovery. It does take time. It does take a lot of work.
Yeah, like with automatic rumination. So, like you say, Gemma, you're not going to suddenly, have a couple of sessions and that's it. You stop ruminating, you're fine, because it's down to your beliefs. So I remember thinking that a lot when I'd wake up in the morning and I'll be going, "Why is my brain still scanning? I'm working on my beliefs. I'm practicing unconditional acceptance. Why is it the first second that I wake up, my brain's scanning for a relevant false memory?" Well, it's because the fear is still high and the beliefs are still very. It's not just a quick fix like we talk about. It's gradual, and then these symptoms will gradually come down. You can't just stop ruminating. You can't just click the fingers and ask it done.
Yeah.
It's a gradual process, and they come down with other symptoms as well. And as you get more wise to OCD's tricks.
Yeah, I guess we have to remember that like this, our irrational beliefs are embraced so deep in us. And looking back now, before chronic OCD, I did a lot of like so-called compulsive behavior even there, and all these irrational beliefs were forming like by years and years, and it's like just very naive to expect that after a couple of sessions or a couple of disputing, we like just get rid of it and we'll be like complete rational person.
Yeah. Guys, I think this was a good topic to cover because I think we've discussed we've covered a lot of ground on just like mental compulsions and how different scenarios they show up in and the ways they show up in and little ticks, as Gemma also said. So like I think those are some very important good points. And yeah, I'm glad we did this topic today.
And for people still watching, if you can leave a suggestion, that'd be amazing, because we're always at the start of the call, we're thinking about what do we talk about today. So any suggestions, I think that'd be really interesting and we can actually go into detail. And
I'm just laughing because the way Sam phrased it was like he's like, if people are still watching, like if you are not bored by this point, and if you are not just like tired at
Well,
this
it's an hour, an hour this real talk? Probably are, aren't we?
Yeah, I think it's almost an hour. I think it's going to be like 50 minutes or something like that. But
Yeah, pop a comment below and let us know if you're still here, so we know that we know we need to
guys, if you've
shorten
made it, if you've made it this far, congratulations.
You win nothing.
Your chances of recovery are higher if you have made it this far.
No one comment.
Yeah, we should actually say that at the beginning. We should actually say that at the beginning so that people who aren't in video at this point, they know they should leave suggestions. But anyway, good. Sorry, what's that? Yeah, I think
we'll say that. Up the call, we'll go. Any suggestions for next video? Let us know.
Yeah,
and there's no excuse.
And we're now talking video tactics at the end of this real talk. Anyway, guys, I think this was a really good talk and good way to end it as well. Yeah, we'll see you next week with more suggestions, hopefully. But hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks for being here, guys.
Thank you for watching.
Thank you.
Bye.